Yeah, they're pretty annoying. It caused damage to a patch of shingles on my roof that needs to be repaired. And it also damaged my front gutters by pulling them off the house. And I had to have the gutters replaced. That caused me $1,650 to do that. And the roof I have not yet had replaced or assessed for that damage. Additionally, in the summer of 2019, I had to rip out my front walkway because the roots had caused cracks and uneven terrain, which was making it really dangerous to walk. And we had to put in a new thing that couldn't be destroyed by the roots, and that was $750. But as of this year, in the last calendar year, the roots have now cracked the apron of my driveway in half. And one of the roots is quite large and is now coming up through my driveway, right at the curb, right where the driveway meets the curb. It's a tripping hazard, and it's just going to continue to cause this damage. It's also causing the first two panels of my driveway to rise up, which is causing a tripping hazard from the sidewalk onto my property. And I've had two quotes for this already. I'm sorry, three quotes that range between $6,200 and $9,000 to replace just those three portions of my driveway. However, everyone recommended not pursuing that until the tree was removed, because the roots, especially that one big one that's causing the crack, will just continue to do that. I know you're aware of the sidewalk repair, but the fact that I have to pay for 50% of damage that your tree is damaging is pretty unacceptable, considering we're not fixing the problem, which is another one of the reasons that I'm petitioning to have this tree removed. And then the last thing I'll just add is that, I have to have Roto-Rooter come out every 4 months, costs $200 every time, and they have to clean out my sewage drains so that I don't have backup into my house. That's getting very expensive. And I'm well aware that if the tree is removed, that will continue for probably another 5 to 7 years after. And then in the last 8 years that I've been a resident at this place, the tree has never been pruned once, minus the 2 branches that I did have, removed, and the city did pay for those. I'll acknowledge they reimbursed me for that work. But last year when Boley did or December 2018, when Boley did all the trees, nothing was pruned off of mine. And the branches are all over the place. They're resting on power lines. They're resting on TDS and charter lines across 3 houses. And it's just becoming quite a hazard, especially during storms. And I had an arborist from UW Extension come out, and he let me know that this is a low value weak wooded tree, and the weak wood makes the branches more prone to breaking during storms. And just the fact that the roots are growing so shallowly, they're going to continue to cause ongoing damage to my driveway. It'll just get worse. And I don't dislike trees. I would be willing to plant another tree in its spot, but this one has simply outgrown its location, and it's starting to cause significant damage to my private property, and I would like it removed.
This is a silver maple, is it not?
It's a silver maple, yes.
Yeah, which is some people call weed trees, but I was out to your property and looked at it to try to see it, and it's quite a tangled thing in front of your house.
Quite a large, yes.
I want to make sure that, before we took action on this, I get to see what the culprit was here.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh,
all
yeah.
right. Other comments, questions?
Well, I think, Katie, you hit on probably one of the, I've heard all about the tree, and I have some concerns about the tree, but it's the roots that really are at the core of the problem at this point. Well, they both are, but the assessment thing, I agree, didn't really address the what the root damage has been and what it will continue to do. And so as a committee, I'd like to circle back to that, Aaron.
Okay.
I was going to mention I drive by every day on my way to work, so I completely get the picture of the tree. I guess I would like to hear from Mark a little bit about the roots for those of us who aren't experts in trees and their growth pattern.
Yeah, is Mark on board here?
What the letter said is that they were agreeable to increasing the pruning of the tree to kind of handle the upper portions, but I guess to address Katie's concern and to make us all aware, it'd be nice to hear a little bit about the root system and
Sure.
that.
All right. The main reason the root system isn't addressed on the track form is when it comes to the tree risk assessment, that really does focus more on the potential for a tree failure in terms of, you know, really hurting somebody or something from the structure above ground failing, hitting something. So while the tree roots themselves are causing damage to sidewalks and whatnot, and the concrete, which is totally understandable, it's not a, you know, something that's going to rise to the imminent threat of bodily harm for that. So that's really the way the track assessment works. And I put that form in there just so you guys understand the process of a tree risk assessment. It's a class that both Tony and I had to take through the International Society of Arboriculture. It's 4 days in education on it to retain that qualification. So it's not a lightly taken thing, and it's not something that we just show up and look at the tree and we're like, oh, we think it's okay. You know, there's thought that goes into it.
You know, I think, you know, I got the sense from that assessment that you're saying the tree is a fine and healthy tree, but the tree where it is and how it's doing it is doing a lot of damage to the property around it. So we can't, you gotta, I guess, balance the two.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. But at the same time, from my standpoint, if I were to remove every tree that a homeowner isn't like because of root issues, we wouldn't have very many trees left, to be completely honest with you.
Well,
and it is a large part as to when I first started, there wasn't even a cost share for sidewalk replacement when it came to street trees and roots. So in terms of this tree in particular, the root system, yes. Is it going to get any better? No. At the same time, I don't think any tree is going to never be an issue with sidewalks. So this tree does have its issues. And so then it's really up to you guys. I mean, I can't in my professional capacity say that I'm willing to cut down a tree because of an issue like this. Again, because of the fact that we would lose a lot of trees because of that same issue.
Yeah, although you must argue that the silver maple is not the most desirable kind of tree. You're not planting more silver maples.
No, I agree with that, but at the same time, it's a big healthy tree, and after the last number of years of what we have lost, you know, it's not like I'm going around advocating for losing more trees.
No.
And I would just like to add, though, that, I mean, I understand the risk assessment is the imminent danger of a branch falling on somebody, but I sit on my front porch every night and I watch people in walkers and wheelchairs, in strollers, children on bikes trip all the time over those sidewalks. And I just want to add that while you have a cost sharing program to fix the 3 panels of my sidewalk, you don't have a cost sharing program to replace my $6,500 driveway that the tree damaged. So I just want to make that clear that it's not just the sidewalks that are affected by this.
Okay. Other comments, questions?
Have we looked at what, I mean, increasing pruning is one thing, but has there been consideration of like removing a fair amount of problematic branches? Having recently done this in our own yard with a 40-foot oak tree, I know it's made a lot of difference. So I'm just curious, Mark, if that
would be that, and that's essentially what Tony and I had came to the conclusion of is that a good thorough pruning to get that off of the building and away from those types of structures and the lines would be what we would recommend. It's essentially the same thing that we just got done doing this with the Conservancy lands last week. And David, you were part of that.
Yeah, and
we came up to on that one too.
And it didn't go my way
No,
because
understood.
this strikes a very sympathetic chord for me. I think the city doing cost sharing is ridiculous because the city planted the tree, put the sidewalk in, picked a bad tree with shallow roots and caused the problem, and then is just tripping over themselves to tell you about how they chipped in 50%. I recently, excuse me, a few years ago now, had to replace some sidewalk and went around looking in my neighborhood for all the marked squares, and 85-90% of them were due to tree damage. That was long enough ago that there was no cost sharing, and I didn't really enjoy paying for all that myself. Silver maples has been noted are not good trees. They're banned in many areas and apparently are now off of our list of trees. One of the definitions I like of a weed is a plant that's out of place, and a silver maple on a sidewalk is not a really good tree to have and never should have been put there. It has potential damage for the homeowner and is causing damage to property in various ways, and it's mixed up with a bunch of lines that are essential for utilities. I think something more than some good pruning needs to happen, and I don't think there's really a good way of doing this outside of taking the tree down. So I would definitely be in favor of just taking it out.
What are we looking at cost-wise for removing the tree, Mark?
I really don't know offhand. I haven't had that estimated.
I was quoted around 6,000 for removing ours.
Oh, I got an estimate for 2,500 from Accurate Tree Service.
Mhm.
And that was the whole removal and grinding the stump down to a flat surface. The tree removal itself was 2,000. And then the stump grinding was an extra 500.
Yeah.
Not so bad when you consider all the utility lines.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
well, I was first confused when I looked at the property because the power lines are on the other side of the street, and I realized it's a personal, the 220 lines going across to the houses jump right through the middle of that tree and cross the road right there. So that's probably why it doesn't get trimmed by MG&E and others when they come through, because it's just your house line and it's not their line. I know we get our trees decimated every 5 years because they got the 10,000 volt lines going through there.
Sure.
And that's not what you have.
Right.
I guess I personally kind of concur with David's thought. I think this is the wrong tree. It's a bad tree. When I looked at the area, there are 3 other trees in the street. I mean, you have like 4 trees within 50 feet smashed on the street.
Yes,
I'm not sure
we
that
have a
the
lot of
lack of this
trees.
one tree would take this all down. So there's a lot of problems here, and maybe it's time that we step back and say, let's get rid of this silver maple and maybe put a better tree in there and see what happens. Other comments?
I want to caution everyone by saying just blanket statements of silver maples are bad, considering the huge volume of them that we have throughout the city. And you very well could have a whole slew of people coming your way now saying I have silver maple that I don't mind as well.
Yeah. I agree with David and John, but I also have to side with Mark too as a split issue. I understand as a homeowner, but I mean, I know personally 2 friends that have the same type of battle going on, and it will open the door to a bunch of other requests. So I don't know if there's a middle ground solution and then we split the cost of the removal with the homeowner. I'm just trying to think of ways to benefit both parties here.
If the city were to do more towards pruning trees and such, I think that it might not be as much of a problem for the homeowners.
I would agree. I'll say that, I mean, I like the shade this tree provides, but it's really been the last 2 years as the roots have started to come up and cause more significant damage that it's really been difficult for me to not need this tree gone. Before this, when it was just the branches that were causing the issues, I agree that if you had pruned them more regularly and this tree had been taken care of more properly, that I would have been much happier leading up to this. But I mean, I just don't think there's anything to do about the root system. That's really the heart of the problem here. Even if you prune it back, the roots are just going to continue to grow and continue to cause this damage. I don't see another solution.
There are some compounds that can be introduced into the sewer system that will somewhat help, but they're
So
not.
Mark, here's a hypothetical question. Can you sever that one root? Is it far enough from the tree that if you literally the root that's causing the driveway to go up, that somehow cut through that root and take it off from the tree? What would that do to
It
the
really depends. It depends on the distance away from the trunk
Mm-hmm.
and then that size, that combination, because we definitely don't want to run into a situation of severing roots and having the tree become unstable. So it is one of those things that unfortunately, even with the sidewalks, when we do replace them, we try to assess that too, as to whether or not we can cut roots to eliminate that issue.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that unfortunately we can't make that judgment until the concrete has been lifted so that we can see it. It's an option, but it's a bit of an unknown until it's out of the ground.
Well, you would have to remove the apron of my driveway because that root is coming out of my driveway.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, that ultimately that would stop doing worse. It would fix your driveway. It would just stop the driveway from getting worse. 6 more years of having it lift up. I'm just throwing out hypotheticals at this point.
Hey, John, can I?
Go ahead, Jim.
Mark, I appreciate your viewing this and your professional assessment of the crown. But I think most of us would agree that silver maples, also called soft maples, they're notoriously bad in terms of root push, which is why some communities don't want them at all. And landscapers caution anybody that is thinking about putting in a soft maple about thinking it through all the way because of negative issues the roots have. In addition to that, your assessment showed that there were, I believe, 2 defects. And one was pretty significant, the other one was not as big. But these silver maples, they do drop branches and they drop them unexpectedly. And Matt, I'll tell you this, the silver maple that jumped up as a volunteer next to the park path going into Strickers from Westfield dropped about a 3 or 4 inch branch in the last wind and plunked it straight down onto the trail. I dragged it out and chainsawed it up into smaller pieces, but they're the wrong tree to have. And the root damage, it's guaranteed, I think, with silver maples. And if other silver maples are in the community and causing damage, ultimately over time, I think those should be removed as well. And just to highlight the roof damage, Matt, on that same path going from Westfield into Strickers, the silver maple there has gotten quite large, not as big as the one Katie has, but it's quite large and it's heaving up. I mean, heaving up 4 or 5 inches. The three squares that are adjacent to it, to the point that the parks are going to have to be aware of that danger on our own paths. So I think they're bad news all the way around. I was in the insurance business for 30 years, and when there was a defect looked at, we called them widow makers. because it's just about guaranteed that those things, that they're going to be nothing but trouble, whether it's now or next year or whenever. And so I'm in the same, I'm thinking along the same terms as Dave. I think the thing should go.
Yeah. I mean, now, Mark, I know you're concerned about precedents, and we all are, except every other tree that's going to get removed is going to have to come through this committee too. And I think we have enough here to be able to look at the specifics of individual things and not let suddenly a precedence run out of control. But as if Jim says, if these trees are bad trees, maybe it's a precedence that's a well-set precedence. I'm personally in favor. I think this tree should go. Other comments?
I would agree. We have a responsibility, you know, as the city and this committee, especially for the danger in the walking path if the street's constantly being pushed up. But is there a way that we can, you know, set terms as far as future people bringing this? Because there are a lot of silver maple in this community, and I was just corrected that this is a silver maple, not an oak in our backyard. So well aware that issues, but you know, we will be flooded with requests for this. So if we can set some boundaries on it, I don't know if there is a cost sharing, you know, option here to make other homeowners think before they request it removed, if they know they have to split the cost. Is that an option at all, Matt or Mark?
I think it could be. At the same time, in my experience with some people that have asked for removals, I don't think that would be enough of a deterrent, to be completely honest with you. There is a fair amount of money in Middleton now, and if they want a tree gone, they will gladly pay for it. So, I mean, would I be opposed to it? No, it's definitely going to be better than trying to get additional funds to come up with more for removals.
That's where I was headed.
And I just want to add one other thing too, just for education background. Silver maples, well, not the best. Those of you who love the Autumn Blaze maple, that is a red maple crossed with a silver maple. So that one as well. So if we want to jump on the dislike of silver maple trees, it's going to have a ripple effect on those as well. And to be completely honest with you, 75% of a tree's roots are found in the top 2 feet of soil anyway. So you're going to have issues regardless of species. Honestly, there is a elm tree that's pretty prevalent around Middleton Hills that is worse for sidewalk heaving than silver maples are, and I've been cutting them down because of that issue too. So,
Mark, oh, John, can I just?
No, go ahead, Jim.
Mark, would you agree though that the silver maple is much more prone to or more likely to have root push than say some of the other trees that we are now replacing, you know, as part of the tree replacement program? I mean, isn't a silver maple pretty notorious, as I said before, for having surface roots, aggressive roots near the surface?
any tree that's going to be faster growing is going to have a more aggressive root system. And so silver maple definitely fits that bill. Back when a lot of these were planted, and the big ones that we've got, like over off of South Avenue and in Cooper, that neighborhood area, planted back in the 50s, a lot of those were planted because there was nothing there originally. So it was a real good way of getting canopy and shade fast. And then unfortunately, people started to really like them, and so they never really wanted to get rid of them. I've got 2 large ones in my backyard myself, larger than what Katie has in her front yard. And I am well aware of branch drops because of it. But I'm not taking my down because I don't ever run the AC in the summertime either. But I think, you know, would it be great to not have silver maple trees and have something else? Sure. Do I want to get rid of the population of them and start over after we lost the elm trees no more than 5 years ago? No. So it's one of those things where I will deal with the issues that are surrounding silver maple trees. And when we get an opportunity to start looking at them because they're aging out or have other defects, then that's the way I want to approach silver maple replacements.
Yeah, I think, Mark, in fairness, we're not talking about Armageddon against all of these trees in the city. We're talking about one property owner and one property and one tree and the damage that's happening to their property based on a city tree.
Understood.
And it's
But when,
documented. And I don't want to turn this into an issue about silver maples, good or bad. I want to really focus back on, we have this one individual who's having a terrible time with this tree, and this tree seems out of control from what I've looked at it. And so
I
maybe
agree
we
with
can
that,
bring the
Jeff.
conversation back to that. We can, any tree's going to get cut's going to have to come through this committee anyways. So I think we can deal with precedents as time goes on, but we're not, I don't think any of us are advocating that we suddenly go to battle against these things.
I agree with that. There's just been a lot of statements made in general against silver maples being bad.
Yeah.
And that's in general, not just with this property. And
Right.
that's what I'm trying to counter.
I appreciate it. It's an important view to share. Other comments?
I would move to go ahead and approve the removal of this tree with the contingency that the committee and Matt and Mark would work together to create some type of, structure for this approval process in the future so that it doesn't open up, a large flood of these requests for just people that don't necessarily want them in the view of their house.
Yeah.
Opposed to actually damaging.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll
Just to
second that.
clarify, the
All right,
motion,
David has a second. Discussion.
What was that, Jim?
just to clarify, the motion is for our approval or desire to have the tree removed. Is that correct? And then the additional stuff, Aaron, that you were talking about, pardon me, as far as seeing if staff can, come up with some sort of guidelines for the future, that's not part of your motion. Is that, am I correct on that?
Yeah, it's part of the motion that staff work to develop, because I share the same concern that Mark's expressing, that this is going to open up a large flood of requests. And I think it's our duty to make sure that we balance those requests in the future.
John,
Yeah, go ahead, Sue.
I think the motion should just be one issue, this issue of Katie's tree right now. And
Yeah.
another time we can take up the issue of policy. I am for removing Katie's tree because I'm listening to all her expenses and her issues and her repairs. And I think that we need to do something for her and take each tree, set a policy, sure, but do it in a separate motion
You could
and look at each tree individual.
Yeah.
just a suggestion that you make a motion regarding this request, and then you can direct staff to bring a policy back at a future meeting.
I apologize because I thought that the motion was to remove the tree, and there was then the suggestion that the staff come up with some sort of policy that would be brought forward at a future date.
Are you willing to take that, the other part about keep the motion simple to this tree?
Correct.
And David, you second, are you willing to that second?
Yep.
All right, so the motions on the table is dealing with this specific tree and okaying the removal of this tree. We'll come back in a second to the other. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion is unanimous. I think you also have made it very clear, Aaron, and I think we agree that staff should be looking at this as an issue, because it is clear from Mark that there's a lot of people out there with these trees, and the issue will come back. And I think we should discuss this. And I would ask that we put this on either the next one or two agendas, a discussion item. And hopefully you'll bring some information for us. All right, that clear enough, Matt, for you or not?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you much. Moving on to item number 3, proposal.
I
for
just,
planning-
clarify, but I'm going to drop off because I don't need to
Yeah.
stay on this. So what will happen then? You guys will you'll just take care of all this. Do you want any of my information about my estimates or anything I've gotten?
Actually, be careful now. This has to get past the council, and I'm not sure how they'll vote for that.
Okay.
So
So this is our recommendation to
it's a
council.
recommendation to the common council.
Okay, got it.
And Katie, just for your knowledge, I would go out and get estimates for removal. So while you have yours, I would still go out and get some anyway. And
Okay.
just for scheduling purposes and whatever else, so.
Well, and Mark, you'd include this in our annual removal list that we go and contract out when it's situations where it's trees that we can't remove ourselves. We typically have a handful of those each year that get packaged in a bid package, correct?
Yes, I would have to check though to see just where we're at, like in numbers, to see how close or how far out that would be as to whether or not it would make sense to do so.
Yeah, I think Katie, that the motion is that the city is now, we've made the recommendation that the city remove the tree, but that has nothing to do with residual costs or expenses or anything related to you and damage, et cetera. That's not part of this motion. Doesn't mean that something won't happen, but I would suggest strongly that you be in contact with the Mark and Matt and as this moves.
Okay.
And,
All right,
Katie, for your reference, this will be on the council agenda 2 weeks from tomorrow. So
And
that's
is that a
May.
public meeting as well?
It is.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful.
Right.
Well,
All
I
right.
appreciate your time. I'm going to leave. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye.
All right, so now item number 3. Proposal for
Good.
planning services related to the new potential playground on the southwest side of the city.
So this has been on recent PRC agendas, and we have a proposal from Blake, who's done a lot of this work. He's done a lot of design work for Middleton and a variety of projects, but he's also done kind of these playground designs more recently throughout the state and other communities as well. He's on the call, can answer any questions that you have. This would be funded through this work would be funded through Park Development Fund.
And are the funds there?
Yes.
Okay. All right, open up for discussion. No discussion?
Well, I'll interject. CLC, there's land, it's the issue with having enough land to put in anything of consequence, is that?
That's right.
That's a fundamental issue. And does CLC have land adjacent to the area that we're looking at?
That's right. The area number 4, 4A and 4B, those are technically conservancy lands.
Okay.
And so that was one of the issues, is that to do something on that space would not only the space would have to be adequate, but there'd have to be some kind of a reconciliation with the city with conservancy lands, et cetera, whether that was acceptable land to use, usurp, or whatever.
So to explain the proposal and what Blake would do is he'd evaluate what size and what type of playground equipment could be south of Market Street. And then we'd have to take that through Conservancy Lands Committee for discussion as to whether that's acceptable to them and what concerns they would have about a proposed playground on Conservancy land.
But man, I thought the issue was that you were still talking about the playground north of the street. And it'd be more like an adult sort of park on the south side.
Well, I haven't gotten to the point of what age group is where. We're looking both north of Market Street and south of Market Street. And that's really why we want Blake involved to take a look and determine what could be best.
Yeah. Because I think the idea that the hope was that both of them could be consumed together under one. But we'll obviously see what's going to happen.
So,
all right, other discussion then.
Yeah, if CLC says, sure, you can have all the space that you want, does that help our situation? Does that help? Do we get more contiguous area to work with then?
I think we've got to determine what we want first, and that's the first step of this. And then we can go and ask Conservancy Lands related to their concerns. But I didn't want to have an obtuse discussion with Conservancy Lands Committee of not knowing what's possible or what we need.
Understood.
If you go out there, Jim, and you look, I think every single parcel has problems and concerns.
Yeah.
So there's not a simple thing like, here's the spot. If we only had this spot, we'd have the perfect playground.
Right, I know, I almost walked away, I didn't even, I didn't know I was on the site, it was so small.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fortunately, children are small, so they don't need them. Anyways, other discussion, comments, concerns?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good proposal, Matt. Thank you for pulling this together, because I think it reflects what we were talking about as a committee and having the desire and interest and not a whole lot of spaces. But I think it's worth having a professional group come in and really give us some advice, because we're floundering in the ditches around the railroad tracks. So.
Well, and I don't want to speak for Blake, but I think part of his work too will determine, there has to be some cost benefit discussion here too, that if we've got a, substantially managed stormwater or pipe water and there's cost there, does it make sense? And is it a viable site when you have to do those kind of things? So Blake, I don't know if you want to share anything more there, but I think that's one of my primary concerns is it's one thing to say, here's a parcel of land we can put a playground in, but what's the infrastructure cost of being able to do so and ensure that it's not going to be a maintenance nightmare?
Yeah, and I would also add, what's the social benefit? I've been working with City of Middleton since 2004, and so I know your system really, really well. This sector of the city has been identified for as long as I can remember as having a gap in service area and playgrounds, and it's been a struggle. There is no perfect site here, so I'm hoping we can find something. But as the bodies continue to populate in this sector, it becomes more and more important to find that home.
Yeah, I think we recognize that. I think that ideally, I'd still love this to become a larger conversation with Plan Committee and the whole city as terms of what we do and expect from developers when they put in huge amounts of living space, and that we've got to think differently as to how we allocate spaces for parks and stuff like that. But we're dealing with a pig's ear and a sow's purse, whatever that analogy is. But so we're hoping you can do something to give us some advice. Other comments, questions? All right, I would entertain a motion to accept this contract or to recommend this contract, however you do that.
I will move we accept the contract.
I will second it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I don't know how contracts work except somebody signs them somewhere. So any further discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye, opposed? All right, thank you. Motion is carried. We have no further business that I'm aware of. So if nobody has anything else they want to add, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion. Second. All those in favor, say aye fast.
Wait.
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear what.
Mark, tell me how that process works very briefly when we make a recommendation to council.
Yeah.
And then go ahead.
There's a motion to adjourn.
I'll
That's all right. That's fine. I withdraw my comments.
we can withdraw the motion if somebody wants to.
No.
Okay. Hearing none, then all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, thank you all. We'll see you at the next meeting. And have a good rainy day.
Jim, feel free to call me tomorrow and talk through that.
All right.
Oh, all right.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.